right, good morning to you. It's Daybreak here at 7:45, and we're continuing our conversations here on April 20th, 420, a popular day in the history of the cannabis culture and marijuana. And we've had a last segment, we talked to the first retailer, allowed the license in the city of Shelton there at TJ's. And now we're talking with Steve Fuhr from Agropack. And Steve, good morning to you. First off, good to see you again. It's been a while. So I'm trying to think back year and a half, 2 years maybe, the first time we met you, right? As this all started to kind of come together. And you started a group called Agropack. That was your company. Right. And where are we at with Agropack since the last time we talked? Because it's been a long time.
It is. It has been. Well, originally we were wanting to go to the Port of Shelton, right? And then the Port Commissioners didn't want cannabis businesses there. Then we found a private piece of property here in Shelton, and the county put through an emergency moratorium literally the day before we were going to bring our permits down for that property. So we spent a lot of time and money developing that location, which incidentally now houses an operational cannabis grow operation. And then we went back to the port and worked with John Dobson to get the commissioners to change their position. And we found a piece over at John's Prairie and decided to build a brand new building. We're about, I would say, a week away now from bringing plants in. In fact, this week we're buying some product from another processor, and we're going to start processing a product this week and next week.
Wow. Well, congratulations. That's a big deal.
It is. It is.
Been a long time coming.
Yes.
You're kind of the first one out there. So you were the first one to feel the pushback, it sounds like. Yeah,
we've certainly encountered some obstacles, that's for sure.
Has it, though, turned out to be a positive experience, you think? As you're a week away, you can... I don't want to say you can see the finish line, but it's maybe over that last hill.
I would say so. I mean, I've grown a lot personally. I know that the people I work with have learned a lot. We learn things every day that are surprising to us. But yeah, it's been very rewarding to see a new building pop up from the ground, that we've had folks from the Liquor Control Board and other licensees come in and say that we have what they feel is one of the highest tech grows in the state.
Wow.
Is very gratifying.
There's a lot of growers in Washington. They're thinking that by 2020, Washington will outpace all the other states with legalized cannabis and in the processing and production. What exactly will you be doing up on the port property there?
Well, primarily the bulk of our space will be devoted to growing flower. Okay. But a good portion of that flower will be converted to an extract oil. And then that oil can be converted into products. In fact, one of the products we'll be coming out with next week is a salve, a medicated salve that you put on for pain.
Oh, wow.
We'll be doing chocolates. And so flower is just one part of what we're doing. I think processing is ultimately where this industry is going to really flourish.
Okay. So are you considered a grower or processor then?
Correct. Yeah, the state actually has 4 different kinds of licenses. Of course, the retail. Then you can be a producer. They grow. They have processors that turn those flowers into edibles and such. And then the 4th license is a combined producer processor, and that's what we are.
I noticed you're using the term flowers. Is that kind of the new word for the entire plant, or it seems is that changed
from just the bud?
From bud, or
well, technically it is a flower.
Okay.
And so in that sense, that we speak of it in that way. Yeah. But I think we look at the plant as a whole plant. We look at the roots. We look at the other tissues as all very distinctly different tissues with different properties.
So do you have a chemist up there, or are you the chemist?
It's funny. We were counting the other day. We have chemists that we work with. So no, I'm not a chemist. But we work with a lot of different folks that have a lot of great knowledge, and I try to learn from them as much as I can.
How's the how does the industry look from someone on the inside? Is it growing as big as people are saying in the state? Are there still continuing struggles that need to be addressed, or?
Well, it's funny. 2 years ago, we had thoughts of, for instance, things like banking getting better.
Sure.
And we were fortunate enough to find a bank that will work with us. But banking's actually gotten harder for us over the last year. We were looking forward to prices that would stay relatively high. And I think both in Washington and in Colorado, a lot of the producers were shocked at how low the prices have gotten. Right now, there's flower selling for $3 and $4 a gram, or in the black market just a year ago, people were getting $10 a gram. So, there's been a lot of surprises along the way. I think that probably the biggest thing we're looking forward to is the medical stores opening up in July.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, how is that going to affect are you going to have to grow different types of cannabis for specifically medical marijuana?
It's interesting you ask that. A lot of producer processors that got started in this industry early on started with many different strains. I know growers that came in with 50 or 60 strains, and they realized it was better to have less strains over time. And many of them tried to grow some of the medical flower that was a CBD rich. And there's basically a THC that kind of gets you high, and the CBD that people look to more as the medical portion of cannabis. But very few of the recreational stores were buying it. So right now, at this point, very few growers are actually growing that CBD. But in the next 3 months, when these medical stores come online, there'll be a huge demand for it. So yes, we do have different types of products that will be growing for the medical industry as well as the recreational industry.
Okay. And so have you also had some issues with your electricity bills or your lighting bills, like from any of the entities around?
Well, for starters, they're expensive, and I think that, it was about a year ago that PUD3 here in this county made a decision to segregate cannabis businesses. So we actually have our own rate, and they've identified all of our industries, and it's not that much higher when you really look at it right now. Right now, though, our biggest concern is that many of the other counties in the state are using a federal rebate credit to allow growers to use low power lights. And energy use is a huge part of our business and an issue for us. And we question why these other PUDs throughout the state are able to allow growers to use a credit that pays for 70% of someone's high energy efficient lights. And here in Mason County, we're forced to use kind of the older, less efficient lights because the PUD here doesn't feel comfortable doing that yet. And so we want to encourage them to revisit that and see what some of the other counties are doing throughout the state.
So what's it going to look like? You have lights on 24 hours a day, and then there's watering and things like that, or?
Well, every operation is different.
Sure.
You can basically put operations into hydro, which grow in water, and that's what we do, and dirt. I was surprised to read a statistic just last week that only about 1/3 of the growers automatically water. And so a lot of folks have 2 or 3 people out there just watering. We're pretty fortunate in that we put a system together that waters itself. But the feeding, is something that needs to get done. And then the lights, we flip half of our building on and half of our building off. And we stagger that because it helps our power costs be much lower.
Oh, I bet. I bet. When you open next week, how many, once you're up and running, I'm sure there's going to be some struggles here and there, but eventually, once you're up and running, do you have an idea of how many employees you're going to have up there?
Well, geez, right now we've got, I think today we'll have 9 people working in the building. So we've got 3 full-time employees right now before we've even opened, including myself. The production facility will need at least 7 people. And then the processing facility could add between 4 and 5 people immediately, and then another 7 to 10 people as time goes on.
Wow. So we just got done talking with TJ's, the retailer. And so those two together, just 2 processor retailers in the county, that's almost 20 employees. That's great.
Well, no one needs to really amplify the fact that the lumber companies shutting down in the area have cost a lot of jobs. And it's funny, I don't think that Mason County has experienced the same downturn because we have over 50 producers right now in this county, operational. And, those numbers that I spit out to you in terms of how many people we're hiring, those are full-time people that are there every day. When we have a harvest, we could add 12 to 15 more people. And so part of what I'm doing is working with some other producer processors to create a pool of these people so we can keep them working 5 days a week.
So go from place to place, perhaps.
That's a great idea. So do you know any people in Colorado that are producing or processing, and has their experience been similar to yours or smoother or?
I do. They had a very different process when they came into this. You had to have an existing business, an existing dispensary or an existing grow operation, and then convert. The other thing they did was about a year and a half, 2 years before they did that recreational conversion, they made sure that all of those medical facilities were regulated. They made sure they had traceability systems. They made sure they were paying their taxes. And so this state didn't go that route for various reasons. And I think that's created some hiccups. But we're past those now.
So things are looking up for the culture here, the cannabis industry in Washington State?
Absolutely. I think it's huge.
And you mentioned the banking industry, and I think there's only 2 or 3 in the whole state that have decided to open up their doors to the cannabis. Do you see it changing anytime soon?
Geez, I wrote a piece in the Marijuana Venture about a year and a half ago on banking, and I get 7 to 10 emails a week from people all over the country, Alaska, Oregon, New York. It's a huge issue. Right now in Washington, again, there's only about 2 or 3. What we're waiting for is the federal government to reschedule cannabis. That's the big elephant in the room. Right now, especially the retailers are getting hammered with taxes at the federal level. And so once that changes, then the banking will change completely for us.
I've heard that middle of the year, so just a month and a half perhaps, is when the feds may make that schedule decision change. Do you think it's going to be going away from the Schedule 1 distinction that it has now?
Well, there's 5 schedules, and in things like heroin and crystal meth and marijuana are in Schedule 1, considered to have no medical value. And then on the 5 scale, you have drugs like Tylenol. But there are 2 drugs that aren't on any of the schedules. And in fact, they kill more people and do more damage than anyone: alcohol and tobacco. So our hope is that they're going to reschedule cannabis completely, or deschedule it completely.
Oh, wow.
And if they can deschedule cannabis alcohol and tobacco, that cannabis could be lumped in that same category. The best case scenario for us is that they'll bring us to Schedule 3. That will open up the banking issues and cure the tax issues of E280. What we're scared of is that they will bring us to Schedule 2. Schedule 2 means that we have medical value, and we're concerned that the FDA then might step in and say, well, now we need to investigate this for the next decade and regulate it.
Oh, sure.
So the other issue is that if we get rescheduled to the second class, that will not make the banking issues or the E280 tax issue go away. So we've got our fingers crossed that it'll go in the right direction.
Well, we'll continue to monitor that. We're talking with Steve Fuhr from Agropack, getting ready to open those doors in a week or so. Good to talk with you. Good to see you again. We're just about out of time here for the news at 8 o'clock. But thanks for coming in and updating us on this.
Well, thanks for having me. We'll see you again, hopefully soon.
Yeah, hopefully soon. It's 7:58 right now. We'll take that break. And when we come back, we get ready.